The air reeked of gasoline and fresh paint, a nauseating cocktail that choked Karen as she stared in disbelief. Her Harley, her beautiful, chrome-laden Harley, lay crumpled beneath a mountain of twisted metal and splintered wood. It looked like a bomb had gone off, not a simple demolition. What is this?" She choked out, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. This couldn't be happening. Not to her bike, not to Betsy. Mr. Henderson, the HOA president and bane of her existence, adjusted his spectacles, a smug smile playing on his lips. "We removed it, as per the community guidelines, Ms. Davis." His voice dripped with feigned politeness, further fueling the fire in her chest. "Removed it." Karen spat, taking a menacing step towards him. "You call this removed? This looks like a scene from a Michael Bay movie, not a goddamn HOA operation." Henderson puffed up like a preening pigeon. The structure, he gestured dismissively towards the mangled metal that was once her pride and joy, was deemed unsafe and unauthorized. "As per the HOA agreement you signed." "Don't you dare HOA agreement me," Karen snarled, her hand instinctively reaching for her back pocket where her badge always sat, a reassuring weight against her skin. Her fingers brushed against the familiar leather, and a cold calm washed over her. Henderson, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath his nose, continued his condescending tirade. "This is a community for respectable citizens, Ms. Davis, not outlaw bikers." Karen's lips curled into a humorless smile. "Oh, you have absolutely no idea just how respectable I can be, Mr. Henderson." Karen slowly pulled her badge from her pocket, the silver glinting under the harsh afternoon sun. Henderson, still rambling about property values and community aesthetics, didn't even notice. She let him dig his hole a little deeper, her anger a simmering pot about to boil over. "This is going to be a very expensive mistake, Mr. Henderson," she finally said, her voice low and dangerous. He finally stopped, his beady eyes settling on her face. "Oh, I assure you, Miss Davis, the HOA has excellent lawyers." With a swift movement, Karen flipped open her badge, holding it right under his nose. Henderson blinked, his smug smile faltering for the first time. "Detective Davis, LAPD. And I think you'll find that destroying personal property, especially property belonging to law enforcement, is a very serious offense." The blood drained from Henderson's face, leaving him pasty and wide-eyed. You're a police officer," he stammered, his carefully constructed facade crumbling. "Surprised?" Karen asked, enjoying the flicker of fear in his eyes. "I'm also a card-carrying member of this pathetic little HOA. You rule like a tin-pot dictator. And I'm fairly certain this little stunt violated about a dozen rules and regulations, not to mention state law." Henderson opened and closed his mouth, speechless for once. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He'd dealt with disgruntled homeowners before, but never someone who could throw him in jail with a single phone call. Karen tucked her badge away, her gaze fixed on the wreckage of her bike. "You've made a powerful enemy today, Mr. Henderson, and I suggest you start thinking about how you're going to fix this. Because this," she gestured towards the mangled metal, "is just the beginning." News of the cop incident spread through the manicured lawns and pristine sidewalks of the gated community like wildfire. Neighbors Karen hadn't even known existed suddenly emerged, their hushed whispers carrying on the breeze. It was as if Henderson had accidentally detonated a gossip bomb in his haste to assert his authority. Karen, ignoring the stares and whispers, pulled out her phone, snapping pictures of the mangled motorcycle from every conceivable angle. Each shot was a tiny nail in Henderson's coffin, evidence she intended to use to bury him in a mountain of legal trouble. A shadow fell over her, and Karen looked up to see Mrs. Peterson, an elderly woman from down the street, her face creased with worry. "Detective Davis?" she asked tentatively. Karen offered her a reassuring smile. "Just Karen is fine, Mrs. Peterson." "Oh, thank heavens," the older woman sighed. "That man, Henderson, He's been unbearable. Always flexing his power, threatening fines for the slightest infraction. Karen raised an eyebrow. He's threatened you, Mrs. Peterson. The woman's eyes darted nervously towards Henderson, who was now engaged in a heated, hushed conversation with two other HOA board members, their faces pale and drawn. Oh, it's nothing, dear, Mrs. Peterson said quickly, her voice dropping to a nervous whisper. Just be careful. He can be very vindictive. Before Karen could press further, another voice cut through the air. Detective Davis. Karen turned to find a young man in a crisp suit, his expression a mixture of apprehension and hope. He looked vaguely familiar, but she couldn't quite place him. Yes. I'm with Channel 7 News, he said, holding up a microphone with the station's logo. We heard about what happened. Can you tell us what you plan to do about Mr. Henderson and the HOA? Karen stared at the microphone, then back at the reporter, a slow smile spreading across her face. This, it seemed, was about to get interesting. Karen regarded the eager reporter, his microphone practically vibrating with anticipation. Around them, the murmuring neighbors had fallen silent, their attention glued to her. This, Karen realized, was her chance to turn the tables on Henderson and his cronies. What am I going to do? She echoed, her voice calm, but laced with steel. Well, for starters, I'm going to file a formal complaint with the police department and press charges for the destruction of property. The reporter's eyes widened. The police department. But you are the police. Karen chuckled. That's Detective Davis to you, she said with a wink. And yes, even we have to follow the rules. No one, not even the HOA president, is above the law. She paused, letting her words sink in. Furthermore, she continued, her gaze sweeping over the assembled neighbors, I intend to launch a full investigation into the HOA's practices. I've heard whispers of intimidation, misappropriation of funds, and abuse of power. It's time to shine a light on what's really going on behind those perfectly trimmed hedges. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd, some nodding in agreement, others exchanging nervous glances. And let's not forget about the media, Karen added, gesturing towards the reporter, who looked like he'd won the lottery. I'm sure the good people of this city would be very interested to hear about how their HOA fees are being spent. On legal fees for frivolous lawsuits. Or maybe, she trailed off, her gaze fixed on Henderson, on something more sinister. Henderson, his face now the color of old yogurt, stormed towards her, his fists clenched. You're going to regret this, Davis, he sputtered. I'll have you fired. You'll never work in this town again. Karen simply smiled. We'll see about that, Mr. Henderson. We'll see. As Henderson fumed, a woman in a tailored pantsuit pushed her way through the crowd, her expression a mixture of shock and fury. Bob, what on earth is going on here? Karen recognized her instantly. It was Mrs. Henderson, the HOA president's wife, and from the look on her face, the storm was about to get a whole lot worse. Mrs. Henderson, a woman who normally wouldn't be seen dead without perfectly coiffed hair and a string of pearls, looked like she was about to unleash a fury that could rival Karen's own. Her eyes darted between her apoplectic husband and Karen, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the designer handbag clutched in her grip. Bob, she hissed, her voice deceptively calm, explain yourself. Now. Henderson sputtered, his bluster fading under his wife's glacial stare. It's nothing, Martha, just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that involves a demolished motorcycle and a news crew. Mrs. Henderson cut him off, her voice rising in disbelief. Really, Bob? What have you gotten yourself into this time? Her gaze, sharp as shattered glass, landed on Karen. Detective Davis, she said, her tone surprisingly even. Perhaps we could discuss this like civilized adults, without the theatrics. Karen, sensing a tactical retreat in the making, decided to play along. She could practically smell the fear rolling off Henderson, and something told her Mrs. Henderson held the real power in this marriage. "Of course, Mrs. Henderson," Karen replied, her tone carefully neutral. "I'm always open to a productive conversation." Mrs. Henderson turned back to her husband, her expression unreadable. "Bob, why don't you go inside and compose yourself?" The look in her eyes brooked no argument. Henderson, defeated and deflated, mumbled something about calling their lawyer and practically scurried towards their McMansion, his shoulders slumped. The crowd, sensing a shift in the power dynamic, began to disperse, their whispers following Henderson like a Greek chorus. Only the reporter lingered, microphone poised, clearly hoping for a juicy soundbite. Mrs. Henderson, seemingly oblivious to the attention, fixed Karen with a steely gaze. "Detective Davis," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "let's take a walk, shall we? I believe we have much to discuss." Karen followed Mrs. Henderson, her posture radiating an air of quiet confidence. They strolled in tense silence, their steps echoing on the pavement, past perfectly manicured lawns and houses that looked identical, yet somehow felt worlds apart. Karen couldn't help but think that behind those pristine facades there were countless untold stories, many likely involving the iron fist of the HOA and its now disgraced president. They reached a secluded bench nestled beneath a meticulously pruned willow tree. Mrs. Henderson, her movements deliberate and controlled, took a seat, her gaze fixed on the ground. "Detective Davis," she began, her voice softer now, stripped of its earlier edge, "I apologize for my husband's overzealousness." Karen remained silent, waiting for the other shoe to drop. She knew this carefully crafted apology was just the opening act. "Bob," Mrs. Henderson continued, her voice laced with a weariness that hinted at deeper issues simmering beneath the surface, has a certain way of handling things. He's always been about rules, order, control. She looked up, her eyes, a striking shade of emerald green, holding Karen's gaze. "But this," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "this was a step too far. Even for him." Karen raised an eyebrow, prompting her to continue. "Let's just say," Mrs. Henderson said, leaning closer, "that certain members of the board have not been pleased with Bob's leadership. He's made enemies. And this little stunt with your motorcycle, well, let's just say it's presented us with an opportunity." A slow smile spread across Karen's face. This was it, the leverage she needed. "An opportunity?" she echoed, her tone neutral, but her mind racing with possibilities. Mrs. Henderson nodded, a steely glint in her eyes. "An opportunity to remove Bob from the equation. Permanently." Karen leaned back on the bench, considering Mrs. Henderson's offer. This unexpected alliance, forged in the fires of mutual animosity towards the HOA president, had the potential to burn brighter than any Harley engine. "What exactly did you have in mind, Mrs. Henderson?" Karen asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Call me Martha," Mrs. Henderson replied, a shrewd glint in her eye. "And let's just say I have certain resources at my disposal. Resources that can make Bob's life very difficult, especially if certain irregularities in the HOA's finances were to come to light." Karen couldn't help but be impressed. This seemingly demure housewife was a viper in designer clothing. "And what makes you think I'm interested in playing your game, Martha?" "Because you, Detective Davis," Martha said, her voice dropping to a low murmur, "strike me as a woman who understands power. And right now, we have a shared enemy." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "Help me get rid of Bob, and I promise you, the HOA will become a distant memory. Think of it, Karen, no more petty rules, no more harassment. You could even rewrite the rulebook yourself." The offer was tempting, Karen had to admit. But something about Martha's proposition rubbed her the wrong way. It felt too easy, too clean. "And what happens to Bob?" Karen asked, her voice hardening. What's to stop you from simply replacing one tyrant with another? Martha offered a thin smile, devoid of warmth. Let's just say Bob has made some powerful enemies in this town. Men who won't hesitate to seize an opportunity when they see one. She met Karen's gaze, her eyes cold and calculating. His fate, detective, is not really your concern, is it? A chill ran down Karen's spine. This wasn't about justice, it was about revenge, and she wasn't sure she wanted to be part of it. Karen held Martha's gaze, a storm brewing in her chest. This wasn't how she envisioned things playing out. Bringing down Henderson, exposing his petty tyranny, that felt right. But aligning herself with Martha, a woman who spoke of enemies and wielded power with a chilling ruthlessness, left a bitter taste in her mouth. Martha, she said, her voice firm, I appreciate the offer, but I have to decline. A flicker of surprise crossed Martha's face, quickly replaced by a mask of cold disappointment. I thought you wanted justice, detective. For your motorcycle, for this community. I do, Karen countered, rising from the bench. But justice isn't about making deals with the devil. It's about doing what's right, no matter the cost. She looked down at the woman, her expression hardening. Henderson might have started this, but you're no better, Martha. You're both drunk on power, blind to the damage you're causing. Turning away, she added, I'll deal with Henderson my way. And as for you, Martha, I suggest you watch your back. Because once I'm through with him, I'm coming for everyone who helped him turn this community into his personal fiefdom. And that includes you. Leaving a stunned Martha on the bench, Karen headed back towards the wreckage of her bike. The reporter was still there, his persistence almost admirable. So, he asked, microphone thrust in her face, any comment on what transpired with Mrs. Henderson? Karen smiled, a touch of mischief in her eyes. I believe Mrs. Henderson, she said, loud enough for the remaining onlookers to hear, is about to discover that some rules are meant to be broken. And that sometimes the best way to fight fire is with a blowtorch. As the reporter scribbled furiously in his notepad, Karen pulled out her phone. She had a call to make, to a friend in the city's building inspector's office. Henderson might have a powerful lawyer, but he'd never escape the wrath of a city inspector scorned. This was far from over. The fight for her motorcycle, for her community, had just begun, and Detective Karen Davis was not known to lose.